when the head of your studio system comes out there and makes statements like this in front of the biggest collection of Wall Street investors at one of the biggest conferences of collections of Wall Street investors, this is what you wind up with. You know, as you well know, not too long ago, under horrible Bob Chapek, which he's thinking, never mind.
For his 6-month reign of terror.
We were losing over $1 billion a quarter talking about on streaming.
When our stock was the highest it has ever been in the history of the company, the dark days were here. God, you want payback, you evil man.
Renegade Online. So, Morgan Stanley Technology Media Telecom Conference. We've talked about this in the last years. If you're an old watcher here, an old member of the Renegade Nation, you've been around enough years, you've seen us talk about this. They do these conferences with these big investment firms every year. Morgan Stanley puts them on. JP Morgan Chase does theirs. Disney would talk at that one. A lot of these other big Wall Street banks will do these things, and they have these CEOs come out each in their own sector. And it's hosted by the coverage analysts that you hear on these earnings calls at Disney. So if MoffettNathanson does one, which they typically do, that Disney usually attends, you'll hear, Bob Iger go there. Now, this year it's different. This year was a bit of a surprise because it wasn't Bob Iger who was the keynote speaker on behalf of the Walt Disney Company. This year it was Dana Walden, which was a bit shocking.
The last internal candidate, possibly? But Valiant, I would not say that we should assume that she's the next CEO. I don't want to jump the gun, but I would just say here, it may be that all the other internals have been ruled out. I would not be shocked if they're looking for somebody at this point outside of Disney, because picking Dana at this point, although, it is Disney, so you never can put too much past them, but picking Dana at this point would be seen as aggressive and abrasive towards the current administration. And they've got to deal with them in many ways.
One would think so. But then again, I don't put anything past them. I just find it striking that she's the one out there doing this by herself, I might add. This wasn't, you're going to put out the heads of the studio here. Then you would think Alan Bergman would have joined her as the co-chair of Disney Studios for this. Now, maybe that was the intention. Maybe Alan Bergman wasn't available. I have no idea. But as it stands, we got Dana Walden sent out solo to discuss everything about the Disney company in this regard. So I found this interesting. So a couple of things, but the problem is that she is kind of locking it into where Disney has a big gap with audiences.
Now hold on a second, Valiant. Hold on. We could actually prove her completely wrong because we're in March. She gave the speed in March.
Well,
we didn't charge for February and January.
I'm going to assume that because she was talking about last year's box office and the previous breath, that again, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt that we're talking about.
Lots of benefits go into this lady.
Well, again, this is why this is a big statement to make. And remember, this is at a big investor conference, and people keep asking, "But Valiant, why do people keep thinking that everything's fine?" Well, when the head of your studio system comes out there and makes statements like this in front of the biggest collection of Wall Street investors at one of the biggest conferences of collections of Wall Street investors, this is what you wind up with. It's this really ambiguous phraseology here. She could have pulled up a chart. Look, here's the chart that we're using to come up with this. Maybe they did. It's not attached to this. I don't know where they're getting this from. 10 of the top most 100 shows? I have no idea. 50% of them are owned by Disney. Well, again, Bluey's not owned by Disney, but Disney has it, and that's in the top 10. But again, belaboring this too much. Swinburne comes back and he says, I think it's interesting when you look at the Nielsen data and you aggregate Disney's assets, it's actually got the biggest audience of any of the media and tech companies. Okay, now this is a layup for her. Now, chat out there, how do you think that he came up with that? We know it's true, but it's deceptively true. It's all the live sports. That's what makes it happen. Once you throw in, which is, look, it's big for Disney, don't get me wrong, but a lot of people out there will look at this and think, oh, the Disney Plus shows must be doing great. No, we're not. We're talking about the aggregate of Disney's assets, right? Nielsen data. Nielsen data is linear broadcast, live broadcast over the air. It's cable and streaming. Nielsen's looking at everything. And the biggest things you can go and look at Nielsen data, especially during football season, week in, week out, is all the NFL games. Monday Night Football is the biggest thing on TV, ratings-wise, generally, on average, every single year. The next thing behind that, all of the SEC college football. This is where Disney's audience is. So they're getting it on sports. This is not coming from Disney Plus, and it's not coming from Hulu, although Hulu's certainly doing better by any account that we can tell than Disney Plus itself. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. And she talks more about that in her answer. She talks about as you well know, not too long ago, under horrible Bob Chapek, that's what she's thinking in her mind.
For his 6-month reign of terror.
We were losing over $1 billion a quarter talking about on streaming.
When our stock was the highest it has ever been in the history of the company, the dark days were here. God, you want to pay back, you evil man.
We're now profitable, she says, growing revenue and delivering in with visibility towards double-digit margins.
We have
not with Disney. Wait,
go ahead.
Disney Plus.
Bits carry me. Go ahead.
No, not with Disney Plus. Hulu is certainly driving it, and what has pulled them out of the doldrums, and we've explained this before. And again, I hate the fact that there's never any pushback from guys like Ben Swinburne on this. Where you've got the perfect opportunity here to ask, well, Dana, based on what you just said, how much of that profitability? Because this would be my question right here. Dana, you know the answer to this. You absolutely know the answer to this because you're the chairman of this division. How much of this profitability, how much of the total revenue, profit and loss, what does Hulu look like compared to Disney Plus? Because we are 99% sure that Hulu is doing probably fairly well. Okay, especially considering the fact that Disney would likely not be so gung-ho to throw out another $15 billion in total, $13 to $15 billion to Universal to buy the last piece that Disney doesn't own of Hulu. Not to mention the $70 billion they paid for Fox's piece of Hulu, which was insane. And the catalog, of course, of television and theatrical content that came along with it. But that question didn't get asked here. It's trying to make it look like, well, we were losing $1 billion. Now we're profitable.
Hey, Dana, this is really great that your stock has dropped by 50% over the past 4 years and you've managed to make $12 in a quarter. You're really digging out of that $100 billion hole for streaming. Good job, Dana.
That's what I want them to say.
What I don't like about this is that, again, we're avoiding the question that it's not suddenly that Disney Plus got better. It really hasn't. If anything, it's arguably gotten worse, especially since Mando Season 2 in terms of big, expensive content and its ability to keep audiences engaged. The thing is that what has brought it into profitability, Pro, you already know the answer to this, was Disney did what?
About Hulu.
Well, no, they got more pieces of Hulu.
Ads out there.
They cut everything out. They've been
we can
slashing
keep growing,
productions.
There's so many.
It's not like all of a sudden, I mean, look, let me explain the difference here. The difference between what I'm talking about versus some honest growth to show some real. People are tuning into Paramount Plus like crazy every time Taylor Sheridan drops a new show. They are the biggest things on television. People turn in like crazy to watch Game of Thrones, and it's a multi-generational, multi-country, worldwide kind of hit. These are big things for these, and they turn in massive numbers on the ratings charts. Disney puts out something that they think is going to be a massive hit, an MCU title, a Star Wars title. They spend 2 and 3 times more than Taylor Sheridan spending on his shows, and they don't even get a fifth or a tenth of the audience in some cases that these shows on Paramount Plus are getting. The difference is how is Disney Plus moving into profitability? It's moving in because they've been cutting stuff out. They've been cutting budgets. They've been cutting shows. They've been eliminating content. And to be fair, a lot of other places have done it. But the one thing that other streamers out there have seen that Disney hasn't seen is a massive uptick in engagement on content that's not geared towards 5-year-olds. Bluey, Disney Clubhouse, Mickey Mouse Clubhouse.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Valiant, you had that exactly right. You said Bluey, ... and then you tried to think of a name of something from 10 years ago.
Right.
They have Bluey. They don't have kids content that is driving anything. By the way, looking at the Nielsen gauge right now, from the Nielsen gauge, Disney has the distinct honor of being treated like no other company by Nielsen right now. All of their streaming services have been added into one giant Disney with an asterisk next to it.
Right.
And the asterisk says it's Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu SVOD.
Yep.
Disney's market share in streaming. They hate for you to know this, folks. They hate for you to know it. 4.7%. YouTube, and beside YouTube, it has this fancy little word. One syllable, 4 letters. MAIN. Main. You know what that means, Valiant? It means just the normal YouTube app.
Yep.
On televisions. Not YouTube TV. You don't get to count that.
Nope.
Not any of the other YouTube stuff that happens on phones. You don't get to count that. Just the TV app. YouTube Main. And despite Disney having the distinct honor of having every single one of their streaming services essentially rolled into one, Disney has 4.7% amongst all of their streaming offerings, 4.7% market share. YouTube, just the app for the TV, has 10.8. I'm sorry, but the rest of this stuff with Dana, it's malarkey. And investors need to know about it.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.